All right. So thank you everybody for getting on the webinar today. I appreciate it since I know some of the weather's been kind of nasty and we're getting out of break. So just for those of you who may not know, I am Annabelle Escamilla and I am the Assistant Director for IHEC. We've been really looking forward to this year as we're doing some new programs, new training, and we're getting to build up, what we used to have with our conference. So just some general housekeeping for today's webinar is that I will be moderating the chat as we go, but please feel free to use the raised hand, reaction or icon, or throw something in the chat and we can answer those as we go. If you have any questions, please feel free to direct message me or shoot me an email because I will have both of those ready for that. And then after the survey, we will be sending a survey from the IHEC email, or I will do it myself just to get some feedback for today and then help you guys get your CEUs covered. So just a little bit of information about today's webinar. We're going to be talking about AOD policy and why it matters to advocate for policy for prevention. So with us today, we've got Allie Pearce from Rowan University in New Jersey, and I'd like to turn it over to her.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for allowing me to speak today. I'm really excited to be able to meet with you virtually. I'm going to share my screen and a little bit about what we are talking about today. We're talking about kind of how to advocate for alcohol and other drug policy change, kind of regardless of what your position is at your university. So a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Allie Pearce. I am the Assistant Director of Health Innovation and Quality Assurance here at the Rowan University Wellness Center. I'm one of the co-coordinators of our SMART team, which is Stress Management and Response Team. So this is a team that responds to campus or community crises or tragedies. Kind of in another life, I was the Assistant Director of Healthy Campus Initiatives. I'm also here at the Rowan University Wellness Center. I was the only person in that position and held that from its inception to its completion, which is about 11 years. And so that's where I got a lot of my health promotion experience, excuse me, and a lot of health education experience as well. Prior to that, I was the project coordinator and then director for a couple of grant programs that we had from the Center for Addiction Studies and Awareness, also at Rowan. I've been at the university for my whole career. And in that role, I was overseeing some grants that worked on conferences and trainings regarding collegiate underage alcohol use, and also talking about social norms related to bullying in middle school students and related to alcohol and other drug use in high school students throughout 65 middle and high schools within the state of New Jersey. So I was there for about 5 years and learned a lot of things about grants. I'm currently the co-chair for the New Jersey Higher Education Consortium on Alcohol and Other Drug Prevention and Education. I've been a member of that consortium since I was an undergraduate intern, so many years. And I've always really valued the opportunity to get to share information with my colleagues and be able to learn from them as well. I have experience with reviewing, writing, implementing grants, on the state level, on the federal level as well, as an author or as the primary investigator, often both. So I've had plenty of experience with that. And then here's my little fun fact, because we always have to do a fun fact. I am really into endurance racing. I have done 5 marathons in my life, 3 half Ironman triathlons, and I signed up for a full Ironman this year. So we will see how that's gonna go. I will keep you all posted on that one. A little bit about Rowan University. So we are located in Glassboro, New Jersey, which is about 20 minutes east of Philadelphia. We have about 20,000 students across all of our campuses. And I say all of our campuses because we have a lot of them. Rowan has been expanding for, it seems like forever. So we have our university, what we call main campus over here in Glassboro. We have 3 community college campuses. So we acquired what we now call the Rowan College of South Jersey, which has 2 campuses in Sewell, New Jersey, and in Cumberland, New Jersey. And the Rowan College of Burlington County, which is about 45 minutes north of us, which also has strong affiliations with the university. We are one of the few universities in the country that offers both a DO and an MD medical school. We have our Rowan Virtua School of Osteopathic Medicine. Virtua is one of our local healthcare systems, and the Cooper Medical School of Rowan University, which is located on our Camden campus. So Camden is kind of just across the river from Philadelphia. We are going to be opening a veterinary school, which I believe will be one of the first in the state of New Jersey. And that is going to be opening in 2025. So I'm going to tell you all this information because we've started as this little kind of regional college and have really expanded to everywhere in South Jersey to really kind of try to make a space for ourselves. The Rowan University Wellness Center, again, that's where I reside. Opened in 2013. It was the bookstore prior to that. So a lot of our alums still know it as our bookstore. And we are an integrated healthcare system. So we offer within our building student health services, counseling and psychological services, our Schreiber Family Pet Therapy Program, and emergency medical services. So we have our own EMS squad that is run primarily by student volunteers with a chief and assistant chief as paid professional staff. A little bit about our reporting structure here. We've changed a couple of things in the past few months, but what it ends up being is me reporting to the Assistant Vice President for Community Health and Wellbeing, who also oversees our full wellness center, and he reports to our provost. So we kind of go up more of an academic affairs route rather than a student affairs route, which is a bit of a change from a lot of other universities. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was a lot of our existing policies that we have currently at Rowan University, kind of see if they match up with your existing policies you have in your institutions, talking about what policies have come in and how we advocated for some of those changes and what it looks like, and then had a discussion at the end with the time remaining to be able to kind of hear from our group on how we could see things working on your university campus. So some of our existing policies, alcohol and other drug, we are not a dry campus. Our traditional residence halls are substance free. So those are the ones that have generally a shared bathroom or a common floor, or what we call our traditional residence halls. And regardless of anyone's age, they are supposed to be substance free. We have apartment style living as well. If everybody in the apartment is over 21, then they're allowed to have alcohol on campus. If anybody who is 20 years and 11 months walks in the door, the alcohol is no longer permitted and has to be put away. In New Jersey, recovery housing is required. All state colleges and universities that offer residential living anyway are required to offer housing for individuals that are in recovery. So this is something that's been in existence for several years and looks very different at different universities. Rutgers has always been the main example for us. They have such a wonderful collegiate recovery program. And we're kind of trying to build that way. We're kind of looking, if we're looking at it as a storybook, we're at chapter 2 and they're at chapter 30. So we know that all colleges and universities are supposed to offer that. It does not necessarily dictate how that looks or what the programs surrounding of it are, and that's not part of the law. Narcan or naloxone, you'll hear me use both interchangeably. Availability is required in New Jersey in state institutions and other facilities on campus. So we're going to be talking about what that looked like before our governor's standing order and the kind of what it looks like now and what some of our thoughts are for the future and kind of how that might end up looking. All of our incoming first-year students are currently required to take Alcohol Wise and Consent and Respect. That's a Third Millennium Classrooms program. We're going to be switching that over to Alcohol EDU and Haven in the next incoming fall. We require only our incoming students because we have more transfer students than we have incoming first-year students. And we figure that many of them have taken some kind of alcohol or other drug course at their other institutions. And also for us, it's a staffing issue. Are we able to actually enforce this in a way that is fair both to our staff and to the students who are participating? Is there a question? Sorry.
No, how long it was and never answered, so I don't want to.
Okay. So yeah, so we have on our campus the Good Samaritan / medical amnesty policy. Again, this is something that has been in existence for several years at this point. You know, allowing individuals to be able to call for help if someone is experiencing an overdose or needs medical attention regarding any substances, alcohol or other drugs are both covered under that. They are also covered in New Jersey under our 911 Lifeline legislation and our Overdose Protection Acts. So students and individuals under 21 are afforded the same availability to get help. In the past couple of years, cannabis has been made legal for those over 21 in New Jersey. You still can't smoke it here, folks. You know, so kind of letting students know that, yes, that is something that if you are over 21, choosing to do that on your own property, that is not also our property, by all means. But reminding students again that everyone receives federal funding. We still can't permit cannabis on campus. And that seems to be a challenge for a lot of our students and some of our faculty and staff, sometimes to really kind of understand what that looks like. Some of our other existing policies are sexual harassment and Title IX. We have our Title IX investigator and a managing assistant currently overseeing that office and taking on all of the Title IX complaints and issues and concerns from our Glassboro campus. Other campuses have other individuals that are kind of in charge of that. You know, so we know that it's an office that has a big responsibility and has a lot of reports that are coming into it, you know, so it's something that's really important to all of us, and we work closely with them. In the Wellness Center, we are considered a confidential resource. So in the university, in the state of New Jersey, we have confidential resources and mandatory reporters. Again, in our Wellness Center, almost everybody is clinical staff except me, you know. So kind of knowing that everybody, you know, for students that are coming in, the counselors, clinicians, doctors, nurses don't have to report it to Title IX, of course, unless the student wants that to happen and an investigation to happen, with the exception of talking to me, because I'm not a clinician. And so that's something that I always make sure that students are understanding if they're coming to me. I call it the squirmy hands thing, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I just have a question. I will always say, you know, absolutely. I just want you to know if this is a story about sexual assault or sexual harassment, I might have to tell somebody else, you know, and giving them back that power to make that decision on how they want that to look. And of course, if they are communicating with any of our clinicians on campus, they of course have the availability, opportunity to speak with law enforcement if they so choose, to speak with our Title IX office if they so choose, but they do not have to. I am the co-chair of our Sexual Violence Prevention Task Force. So this is a task force that's been in existence for about 10 years. And we spend a lot of time kind of discussing existing policies related to Title IX, because we know that some of those policies have changed one way or the other as federal administrations have changed over the course of the past couple of years. What's nice is that our fraternity and sorority life and athletic staff are all also members of it, and some of our more active members, which is really fantastic. We run Take Back the Night every year. Fraternity sorority life is always out. Athletics is always a huge supporter and comes out in droves for it, so it's always something really wonderful for us. Our off-campus conduct policy. So what we know for our students is that they can be subject both to, we call it borough because of Glassboro, you know, to subject to both borough and campus sanctions. So it is possible that you get in trouble both with the township and with the university if you're on township property or on our property. We have both Rowan Police, which is a sworn police force, and Rowan Security. Both work very closely with Glassboro Police Department and have joint jurisdiction in different areas so that they're able to respond to concerns and respond to things that need to be responded to. There seems to be a kind of confusion on enforcing cannabis violations throughout the state. It's not just a Rowan thing. You know, there seems to be a lot of confusion or unclearness on what actually is a violation, what does that look like, what is not a violation, and what does that mean? So it's been something that's been challenging to make sure that we have consistency when we're enforcing, especially if it's an off-campus conduct policy. making sure that everybody is getting the same treatment and same policies across the board. Our policies related to really any of our policies are the same for all of our Rowan University campuses, including Cooper Medical School of Rowan University and Rowan Virtual School of Osteopathic Medicine. So a lot of these kind of cross the board in having that consistent policy. So here's some stuff that we added, So we have always offered Narcan naloxone. So this has always been provided and stocked and gone with Rowan EMS, again, our emergency medical services. Rowan Public Safety always has it on their person and in the wellness center. So when we received the governor's standing orders that requires public access locations and to be able to have this, available and readily available to those who need it, it wasn't a change for us from that perspective. Like I said, our EMS and the people who are responding and being first responders already carried it, but what this change did is it does allow free distribution of Narcan at some pharmacies. So we looked it up. We do not have a pharmacy on our campus. We have a Walgreens within walking distance, which the last time I looked it up was not providing it for free of charge, but we have a ShopRite that's a little bit further that was. So we let students know and faculty and staff know where one can get it without cost. You can get it over the counter or behind the counter without a prescription at all New Jersey pharmacies. So we wanted to make sure that we had access to that. The standing order, like I said, permits over-the-counter distribution, and it strongly encourages training and more Narcan availability. So the order itself really encourages individuals who work in any kind of a public setting to be able to be trained on Narcan and how to use it. So we do a lot of Narcan trainings on our campus. For me, I found that it works best virtually for us. Because it gives people an opportunity to ask questions. It gives people the opportunity to learn kind of where they are comfortable. So I'm going to talk about the training, I guess, a little more in a second. So Narcan is now located in all of our AED cabinets on all of our campuses. So the ones on the Stratford campus, Glassboro campus, on Camden campuses are already checked monthly by our EMS staff to make sure that the AED itself is functioning. So now they're just also making sure that the Narcan is present. On all of the AED cabinets is a sticker that says Narcan inside with directions on how to use it. So we make sure that that is consistently available to anyone who needs it. All of our buildings do not have an AED. It is not in all of our buildings. We do not have AEDs in our residence halls. So this is something where there's a lot of access. It's not flat access to everybody that could have it. Like I said, we have talked about, we've done in-person, synchronous, asynchronous training. When I put this slide together, 128 people have completed some kind of a virtual training, whether that was synchronous or asynchronous. So what we do for that is we recorded a presentation and included information from the manufacturer on how to use the Narcan, and because it's from the manufacturer, what are some things that could be side effects? If you're watching a TV commercial, you see all of these effects of whatever drug that it is. We wanted individuals to know what was going on, but also really enforce the part about Good Samaritan and about being able to help somebody. So that training is quite short, which is why it works really well virtually. So those who complete the training virtually or asynchronously, there's a link at the end of it where they fill out their information. It's just first name, last name, your Rowan ID number, and which campus will you be picking up your Narcan from. And then the emails are directed to each of those campus liaisons. For in-person training, thanks for coming. Here's your Narcan. So we have a couple of different ways to be able to distribute it so that we have the information we need to report back to the state to order more Narcan. We do have what we call our clinical exception to this policy on street education. So we have a couple of counselors who are LCADCs, and some who aren't, but we still work with those who are experiencing AOD and substance use concerns or issues. If the clinician feels that their patient, their client, their student would benefit from having Narcan available right now, they are able to give it to that patient with information about the training. I don't want the training to be a barrier to students. I want people to be able to say, hey, either I'm experiencing, struggling with opioid addiction, or my roommate is, my sister, my brother, my parent. We want them to be able to have that access right away, and be able to offer them the training if they would like it, but not require it. We don't want to have people leaving without the materials that they need. So this was something that was new for us to be able to formally put all of that into a place, to be able to have a distribution kind of policy, and to be able to have a solidified training that can be the same across campuses. So when somebody takes the virtual or asynchronous training, it sends me an email, I send it to our front office. Everybody's happy, they can come and pick up their Narcan from our front office without concern. So some of the questions that we've gotten a lot, I mean, when I say frequently, I mean frequently, asked questions about Narcan training. What happens when the standing order expires, or when it's no longer free to institutes of higher education? Because right now we're getting it for free. Short answer is I don't know. Long answer is we're going to have to figure that one out. Going back to, where we need to budget to purchase it, when and if that expires, and knowing when that is. We talk a lot about, am I legally liable in any way, shape, or form if I'm giving Narcan to somebody? We know the answer is no if you're acting within the scope of your training. But that comes up quite a bit. So we do spend a lot of time talking about Good Samaritan policies, about Rowan policies related to it, and about federal and state policies related to that. Heard a lot that if we give Narcan to people, that they will host Narcan parties. I tried to do some research to find where the Narcan parties were. And by research, I mean, I Googled it one afternoon and found many, many articles referring to each other, and one article where it said that something may have occurred somewhere possibly, but nobody could prove it. So we wanted to talk about rumors and concerns that go around, and also notice, yes, maybe I can address your opioid use, addiction, whatever it is, but I need you to be alive first. We will talk about your addiction, your behaviors, whatever it is, after you're breathing. Another one of the questions that we had was, who in the world is going to actually attend to this training? Why would I ever go to something saying, if somebody in my life, has a concern with opioids, am I outing myself, by going to a training? So we work very closely with our health and exercise science department, and with several other on campus, but it's mostly HES, and they require their students to have professional development hours. It took one email to the chair of the department, hey, will you grant an hour for this? They wrote back immediately, yes. So we have individuals that are coming because they want the knowledge. We have individuals that are coming because they want class credit. We have individuals that are coming because this is something that is very pertinent to their lives. And I'm sure that there are individuals attending that all of those things are true in the same space. So we wanted to make sure that it's academics who's giving the credit for it. We just verify if somebody was there or not. And then each academic unit, if they so choose, can give some kind of credit if that's required in their program or not. But it was very quick email over to HES, Health and Exercise Science. And come to think of it, our disaster preparedness and emergency management major also gives credit for that. They have a similar professional development requirement. Excuse me, talking a little bit about our smoke and tobacco free policy. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm just getting over a sinus infection, so I apologize. So kind of focusing on our smoke and tobacco free policy. A little bit of the background of our policy. We had an American Cancer Society grant from 2017 through 2018. It was actually through our art department. One of the faculty members in the art department felt very, very, very strongly and applied for the grant and was awarded it, and partnered with the Wellness Center to be able to implement it. We took surveys through student government, on, is this something that is wanted by students? excuse me, they were very clear that they wanted to have a smoke or cigarette or cigar-free campus when we asked them in 2018, but it was unclear about vapes. So vapes were certainly a thing. They're not a new, thing to have. They're not a new invention. But at the time, it was unclear on whether or not students were voting for that. So we kind of had a lot of that information. As we were discussing it with upper administration, with our dean of students at the time, with our communications and media and public relations with HR, we had a lot of different concerns and discussions. A lot of it was talking about who's enforcing this policy, whose role or responsibility that is. Does that look different? Most of our professional staff, our support staff, our medical staff, and our faculty are all unionized in different unions. So does that enforcement look different between a union employee or a non-union employee, which are generally our managers? And how do we enforce this policy with those who are not employees of Rowan University? So many of us contract out our food services. We use a group called Gourmet Dining. They're wonderful. But how can we enforce it with that organization when they don't work for us? They don't work for Rowan University. Their paycheck will say Gourmet Dining. So we've had all of these conversations and concerns about all of those things. We had a wellness center, large wellness center meeting yesterday where we were talking about this policy and kind of enforcement, and the parallel of enforcing masks and masking came up as we did for periods of time during the pandemic, kind of looking at it the same way. We're not being the tobacco police. We weren't being the masking police at the same time. We were talking about education and being able to inform and educate somebody moving through rather than looking at it through a punitive lens. Can something escalate? Absolutely. I'd given the analogy, if I go and stand in front of my boss's window and am vaping, at some point I'm going to be written up for something else anyway, and the vape is just going to be a part of that. I don't vape. I'm not planning on vaping, and I don't think he'd be very happy if I was standing in front of his office vaping, quite frankly. So knowing that a lot of these concerns were founded, but also like we've done similar kinds of educational programs kind of in the past. So 2018, we were like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to have a smoking tobacco free policy. The people have spoken, and then life happens. We know that kind of the best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry, right? So going through this, our previous vice president of health and wellness resigned in July 2019. He had been here for almost 10 years, well-liked guy, moving on to a different, phase of his life. And that kind of threw everyone for a bit of a loop as we were looking, who's going to be in charge of the wellness center? How are we going to fall within the university, and what's that reporting structure going to look like? Is there going to be a new VP? Is someone else coming in? So all of those changes that took place in July meant that smoking tobacco free got the back burner. And so we're like, okay, well, we need to move on to other things and then come back to that. Fast forward to fall 2019, we had a very tough mental health semester. There were a cluster of suicides that occurred on our campus, and it was incredibly stressful and horrible and anxiety provoking and all of the things that you imagine it to be. And in that, again, we're just keeping our heads above water. So kind of, again, knowing that smoking tobacco free, where in 2018, we might have been one of the first colleges and universities in New Jersey to have it, we're falling behind because we're just trying to keep our heads up, so kind of knowing that, again, life happens in there. And then we know what happened in spring 2020. And then there was a pandemic, and smoking tobacco free completely fell off the radar as we were learning how to do everything virtually online. I didn't know the word asynchronous prior to the pandemic. So again, that policy kind of fell off of the radar, and other colleges and universities were like, this seems like a great time to implement it. And because we were dealing with so many different changes, again, just trying to hang on, it fell off the radar. So now it's back. So in 2022, our student government wrote and passed a new resolution that the Wellness Center would offer more smoking cessation programs. And I'll talk a little bit about why it was written that way. So the policy itself, the smoke and tobacco free policy, had already passed the University Senate. It was already going to be implemented anyway, regardless of how student government voted. So we wanted to write it in such a way that they had ownership over things that they could have ownership over. So if they had voted no, we don't want to have a smoke and tobacco free policy, sorry, we're still going to have one. It's now much more common in New Jersey, and it's the right thing to do in terms of public health. So we wrote it, and actually the AVP of Health and Wellness in Student Government happened to be my intern at the time. So we spent a lot of time wording this, saying that the student government wanted the Wellness Center to offer smoking cessation programs. So all they're voting on is, should we offer cessation programs? Yeah, cool, neat. So the resolution passed. They said, yes, the Wellness Center should offer more smoking cessation programs. Totally did. Nobody came. So we started offering what we called Breathe Easy Rowan support groups, information. We held them for a period of time, and it's not super uncommon to be holding cessation programs with an attendance of 0. So we wanted to make sure that we at least had the space for this, even if we were not going to be able to get the individuals in the room. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit, we now have an expert health educator screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment. Was hired on another grant. So a grant from Rowan Virtua SOM pays for that position. They let him hang out over here, which we think is absolutely fabulous. And he wanted a little bit more professional development opportunities. So saying, yep, we're going to have the Breathe Easy groups, fall kind of with you. And we happen to have a tobacco dependency counselor trainee who needed some hours. So we said, yeah, this is a match made in heaven. So they were able to create kind of sessions of support groups and offer them. So they ran through and did practice runs with me to make sure that they were comfortable. Someone was always in the building. Again, these are both professional staff members. And no one came. One person came. So what we ended up doing is saying, okay, this is not the modality that is working best for us right now. We want to record them and make them asynchronous. So that's what they've been working on for the rest of that past semester. I spoke with both of them this morning. We're going to offer synchronous virtual groups for the spring semester and kind of see how that goes. Maybe that might be a better format for us. Again, wanting to have the opportunity for individuals who are looking for cessation information or support to be able to have a space. If it is still not something that is taken up on, we'll continue recording these sessions and continuing to put them on our website. So we work very closely with one of our website marketing designers who works for the Wellness Center. So she's just been kind of uploading things, slowly over this break. Our SOAR, Students Organized Against Recovery, yet another grant. We like grants around here, as I'm sure most of us do. So in 2023, we were able to hire 2 of these. We call them well-being navigators. And what they do is work with students generally, but not exclusively, who are on academic probation and give them information, if necessary, about cessation, about AOD resources. They use both the audit and the cut it to do screening. And then, of course, wherever somebody is ranked or what that score is on one of those tools, they might change to give different information, not just about smoke and tobacco, but about alcohol and other drug education. The emails went out to the university on somewhere in October 2023, saying, great, as of January 1st, 2024, Rowan University is going to be smoke and tobacco free, and that's going to be great. And I think they must have all been standing outside the buildings when they clicked send, because overnight, all those stickers appeared on the doors. It was kind of crazy. Like all of a sudden, all the stickers are there. So my boss and I are kind of looking at each other. We're like, well, do we do something? Do we not do something? Like, is it open now? Because everyone thinks the policy is active right this very second. We didn't know. So now we're like, all right, well, it's implemented, but everyone thought it was implemented a couple of months ago anyway. So kind of in some of our upcoming marketing, working with our marketing assistant director is going to be information about the policy, about cessation, and other resources on and around campus, because we also want to make sure that it's clear that this is not a wellness center policy. This is a university policy. So this is something that is not directed out of our office. This is something where we are here to be able to help you. So we want to make sure that we're kind of clear in that discussion with students and with faculty and staff, kind of letting individuals know what that is. Things that we learned while rolling out the smoke and tobacco-free policy. Buy-in is always going to be challenging, because we're a state institution and many of us do. Different areas and spaces on the campus are owned by different entities. So if I am sitting in my chair, I am on Rowan University property. If I go onto the sidewalk, I am not on Rowan University property. If I go and stand in the middle of the street, I'm on state property. So the question has been, well, what do we do? What's stopping people from standing in the middle of the highway that runs through campus? They could just stand there and vape all day. To which my response is traffic is what's stopping them. So if we are having individuals that would rather stand in the middle of the highway than, but either follow a policy or get assistance, we have different concerns. So we have a lot of that buy-in being challenging. But we know that in health promotion, we know that in public health, that sometimes change can be very challenging for us. We, of course, did include vapes and cannabis in the policy, knowing that it's always going to be included in the policy. You could never smoke cannabis here. We wanted it to, one, be clear that you can't use cannabis here, or at least in this smoke kind of way. You can't use it any other way either, but include this in the policy and also have it for the chance it became legal federally. I don't think that's going to be today or tomorrow, but I want to be able to have that policy in place so that it's something that's been strong standing if that were to be something that was coming down federally. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But it can really be confusing. A lot of students, faculty, and staff are like, yeah, down with the cigarettes, but don't touch my vape. So it really has been confusing, including vapes in this. So we're trying to make more graphics and flyers and pictures that include the picture of a vape of some kind of electronic device, so that students and faculty, staff, and other entities can see visually too that this also includes that. We, like everybody else, has had major staffing changes over the past couple of years. I told you in 2019, our VP resigned, and then kind of moving through, we've all had a lot of turnover in healthcare and in higher education. So kind of conveying institutional knowledge has sometimes been challenging. I have been here for 17 years. So of the wellness center, there's one person who has been here longer than I have. So kind of all of the institutional knowledge of here's the stuff that we did when we were Center for Addiction Studies, when we were trying to do this back in 2005, when it wasn't really a thing yet. Here is what other colleges and universities have learned. Here is stuff that we've already tried. So kind of knowing, if we've already tried something before, whether it be passing a policy or enforcing a policy, that doesn't mean that it won't work again, but let's learn from what had happened in the past. We want to be able to balance access and education, so kind of noticing that we want students, faculty, staff, whoever, to have education about smoking cessation, but still have access to their other education, still have access to the university. We don't want to be appearing that we are turning our back on anybody. We just want people to live healthier lives for themselves and for others. And again, kind of everyone's favorite question is, how do we do this without grant funding? Either for our SOAR navigators, which that grant falls under recovery housing, so that funding is going to be ending in the next couple of months. Our expert individual who's running these groups, and how do we continue without guaranteed funding for Narcan or naloxone if that continues to not come through the state of New Jersey. Yeah, so that's kind of everybody's questions. And in it, as many of us have grants and know, we have to figure out what stays, how does it stay, and what are things that we need to let go of. So do we get rid of our policies? No, of course not. But are we able to implement or get additional funding, which is my favorite avenue, to be able to continue the programs and implementations that we already have? I talked a lot for the past 43 minutes. I can see that there's something in the chat. Illinois also has a standing order for naloxone. I like that. Thank you. So I'm going to keep these up, and if you can put in the chat or unmute or do something to kind of answer some of these questions, I'd like us to be able to have a discussion sort of with the remaining time that we have today. So do you feel that your policies have kept up with changing alcohol and other drug laws, with legalization of different substances? Do you feel that your organizations have kept up with those, or are you playing catch up like some of us are?
I was gonna say, I can speak to some of the Eastern side of things. For us at Eastern, some of our policies have kept up. I would say, we've been tobacco free since I think 2016 or 18, one of the two. So for a fairly decent time. I would say the biggest thing that we're having a hard time with is harm reduction with Narcan. There's people doing trainings, but getting them buy-in for having it on campus has been a little bit more difficult, specifically with the community aspect. There's been some pushback with that, kind of that comment you made about, oh, well, are they going to have Narcan parties, or what's the point? They're just going to go use again. It's like, well, like you said, if you're dead, we can't help you. So not much that we can do there. IHEC is contemplating getting like what do you call it? Registration or some form to be able to do Narcan trainings, just because that would be a part of a harm reduction expansion. And I would say the other side of that too, the challenge of creating a policy or forcing a new one, like I said, it's just administration and getting that buy-in. I think there's pushback because if you admit that there's a need for it, then that can affect retention or, new admits. Not that we've really seen an issue on campus, but definitely in the community. But I know for a fact that the big concern is retention.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before. If we have a smoke and tobacco free policy, is that going to impact those who want to come to the university and our admissions numbers? No, kind of across the board. We haven't seen that in other colleges and universities. I'm going to read the two from the chat, and then I'm going to go to Corinne, if that's okay. So I'm looking, it's Corinne, playing catch up for sure. Kind of newer folks in campus safety. And Kayla is saying we are also playing catch up. There wasn't anyone dedicated to AOD for a couple of years before I brought on. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that one too. Yeah, Corinne, tell me your things.
Yeah, so I think actually very similar to Kayla. I think our university, Roosevelt University, has been determining like who's going to be responsible for different things, and who's going to be following up on different policies and different state laws that are coming through for Illinois. And I think even myself, like I'm new within I just had my 1 year as of this week. So I think just catching up, and I know that we do have Narcan on campus, but I think just if we were to maybe have more awareness or like have those areas send out a notice to even just faculty and staff of, hey, this is where everything is located. I think that would be helpful versus just asking like, who has this?
Right.
Especially when those emergencies do happen on campus, even like overseeing housing myself. So.
Yeah, one of our conversations has been, do we have this in the residence halls? Because again, we don't have AEDs in our residence halls. And that's been a topic of conversation. I hang out and, talk to a lot of the New Jersey schools. I also hang out and talk to a lot of the Philadelphia schools, different states, different policies, different laws, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of knowing what some universities and colleges were just like, yeah, we have to have it in the residence halls. That's just going to go in where we like put the Band-Aids and first aid supplies. And other colleges and universities, they're saying, I don't want that level of responsibility to be placed on a resident assistant. I don't know which one is right and which one is wrong. I don't think that there is a right and wrong in that, but they certainly are discussion points to have. I'm looking at Kayla's. We're also playing catch up. There wasn't anyone dedicated to AOD for a few years before I was brought on. Do you want to say anything more about it, Kayla?
I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say.
Yeah,
I think,
know, but
pandemic times and also just staff turnover. There was someone who was doing work for a while and then they weren't. And so, as of October of 23, they were like, this is also a thing that you're in charge of. And so trying to be like, okay, like, what are we doing? What have we done? Like I said, the institutional knowledge is part of trying to figure it out. And also, it hasn't been on people's radars for a while, so trying to get people to think about it again. So it's just a whole other, trying to get that ball re-rolling is always so much more effort than if it was like already going.
Yeah, momentum's really helpful when you have it, with some of our structure changes kind of in the wellness center. So in my previous role as running Healthy Campus Initiative, AOD is like spelled out right there, that's AOD programming is sitting there in my job description. It's not sitting there in my job description anymore, not specifically, and we changed that role to be more of a well-being model rather than like a health promotion model that we might think of it typically. So kind of one of the things that I see as my role and responsibility is to make sure that that hasn't dropped off, that we're not sitting there looking at the biennial review going, oh my God, so kind of making sure that that still is somebody's responsibility. So making sure that that doesn't drop off, and yeah, it's hard to reestablish a process that has been missing. So are there challenges that you experience? What challenges do you experience when creating a new policy or enforcing an existing policy? Or is that kind of the same as policies not keeping up with the times? We're kind of looking at that like policy. Sorry, go for it, Krim.
Oops. Yeah, I think that second piece of just not keeping up with the times,
Yeah.
or just as deadlines are passing, remembering, even with like clery reporting, like remembering to ensure that all parties on campus can actually send the proper numbers and that it's accurate, so that we can submit on time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? I think kind of creating a new policy for us is, one, does this policy make sense? And kind of enforcing an existing one. Is it a policy that everyone just sort of forgot about? Is it a policy that everyone kind of looked the other way for? Which happened to so many policies during the pandemic, and that's not a bad thing, it's just a thing, so it's like, hey, we know that maybe this, smoking and tobacco free policy took a backseat for a couple of years. Yeah, we were dealing with a really scary virus and closing the world. That one took top priority. That's okay. But now can we get back into that and kind of picking up, like we were saying before, that momentum, getting that ball rolling. If you made the policies, how do we go? Like if someone waved a magic wand and said you are now in charge of all AOD policies at your college or university or institution, you have unlimited power and unlimited money, what would it look like? Or like, nah, what we got's cool.
I think at least within like the housing sphere, it's a little bit easier for us to just create policies as is. Whereas when it's the general or the overall university, it does have to sometimes go through, like if there's a legal team on a campus, sometimes they'll have to get approved by them. Usually, at least I've been lucky enough to just forward it over to the Dean of Students office area for approval and kind of make some changes, especially if our like within doing benchmarking with other nearby institutions, like a lot of the Chicagoland area might have the very similar policies that are posted on their website. So we can pull that data and just say like, here's what other places are doing. Can we also please do this because we're being left behind? And a lot of that was even with like the Ring cameras, or another example was the not the push carts, the motorized
Oh, like the hoverboard kind of
Scooters.
things?
yeah, and the hoverboards too. Like
Yeah, the
that
scooters.
has been on our policies for a while, and I'm like, these have been known to explode. Can we not have them?
Right.
Oh, and vapes. Yeah, vapes and electronic cigarettes were also not listed for a while until like they're a thing now. We need to add that.
Right, we have to address it, kind of staying up with things that change, whether it's technology, like, hey, we have a hoverboard that's not actually really a hoverboard, but still cool, and here are electronic delivery devices. I love where we're talking about kind of reaching out to other institutions that are nearby. I love the fact that I can call my counterpart that is at another institution in North Jersey. And it's like, hey, what are you doing? Does this sound cool? So being able to do some of those benchmarking, and yeah, kind of talking about education around vaping, and having support packets for vaping cessation. I want to be mindful of our time. We have about 7 minutes remaining. Are there questions, comments, concerns, thoughtful thoughts, that you would like me to address?
Did we already address, or Kayla put a comment about the vaping cessation? I was gonna say that could be something too that can kind of dabble in a bit too with the harm reduction, if that's something that we want to talk about outside of here too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was like the big one that when we first met, we're doing our biennial review because now we're out of cycle and I was trying to get the ball rolling and stuff. And that was a big one that came up for people, was that they know students are vaping, that they know faculty are vaping, and we're not a completely tobacco-free campus, but we have, designated areas, but they're obviously not using those for vapes. And like also no one's enforcing that, right? So that was like a lot of the concerns that came up. And so how do we have conversations about that, especially when we think about the intersections with mental health, and knowing that some students are using it a lot as a stress reducer, or what they think is stress reduction, but biologically and physiologically is not really helping with
Not so much.
those outcomes. So, wanting
Yeah.
to do education for them around that.
Yeah, no, I think education is something that's really paramount. I'm kind of laughing because we literally had the whole conversation yesterday on whether or not this is stress reducing or not. I'm like, I picked a weird drug for that, but okay. So being able to talk about this. So yeah, so that is my contact information. That's my dog. That's Mia in her Thanksgiving sweater. I've just started including pictures of my dog in presentations because who doesn't love seeing a picture of Mia? So anyway, so that's my name, my contact information. Please feel free to send an email or ask a question or whatever you need. I really appreciate your time today. And Annabelle, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're glad I think we had some good discussion today, and as we're getting ready to have a conference and another affiliate meeting, these are things that we can take into those spaces as well. And luckily we are adding 2 new GAs on Monday that will be doing a harm reduction campaign and, creating, whether it's flyers, like a social media toolkit, things like that we can bring these topics in, because I don't want it just to be like what I think. I want it to be what matters most to the campuses too, because that's who we're going to be giving these materials to. So,
Right, for sure.
oh, well, if there's not any other questions, I will go ahead and stop recording.